Yeah. So it's great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to peeling back the layers of your professional life here. And the first thing I want to ask you is, how did you survive the last 3.5 years of the pandemic? How did you get through it, and how did it change you?
Yeah, great question. Um, rewind, beginning of the pandemic, I actually had my son March 1st of 2020. And at that time was running a team for a global medical device organization that sold into critical care vascular access and infusion. And what was incredibly impactful at that time is one of my teams sold vents,
Wow.
and one of my teams sold pain pumps, of which every patient that received a vent would then also receive a pain pump. And my other team sold vascular access, which is IV catheters, peripheral IV catheters, which is how you typically access the vascular access system to set up the pain pump.
Wow.
So it was a very swift maternity leave.
Yeah.
And because my team was still out there and working and assisting clinicians with what they needed with the shortages and such. And I really don't know. I look back and I wonder, but I was able to retain the entire team. And I think a lot of it had to do with we had a really strong team in terms of, they didn't have to help each other out, but it was much bigger than us with something like a global pandemic.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I think that there's a degree of burnout that comes with that. Well, some people were maybe very at home and, being challenged in other ways. Um, and I wasn't even in the hospitals most of the time. It was my team. But it just puts things into perspective. And I think to your question around what changed over the past 3 years, I think it was really the push and the clarity that I personally needed to step out and do something on my own. And it's interesting. It's like sometimes sad that it takes something so big, but equally grateful to see that, I personally, opened my eyes and just shifted focus, not only personally, but professionally as well.
Well, I mean, that time period was huge for that too. There were so many revelations that people had about their personal life,
Mm.
professionally, what they wanted to do, and what you were doing was vital to combating this pandemic in a medical sense.
And I mean, all the way down to all the material shortages. So just the constant managing, the daily managing of products. And so you can't really shut that off. And then also, I was located in Los Angeles. And so not only were we seeing the pandemic really hit high there, but there was a lot of also other social movements that were happening there
Yeah.
as well. That was, again, super eye opening. And you just can't, you couldn't hide from it for the better or worse.
Yeah, LA was heavy. I mean, a lot of people were leaving because there was so many restrictions. I mean, when I heard you couldn't walk on the beach, I'm like, what are we doing? Like,
I know it's crazy. And my brother actually at the time was with LAPD. So
wow.
he graduated the academy and then less than a year later was, in riot gear working every day, every single
Wow.
day. So, I was like, I have no complaints,
Right.
I'm home. They had no time off. It was just nothing anybody can prepare for.
Talk about burnout. I mean, that would
Oh
be
my gosh.
that line of work. So you've moved and you have a different lease on life. So let's get into that. And I want to do it this way. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's
Okay.
career day. And the
Oh,
kids
okay.
are like, one of the kids looks up and says, "What do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
That's an excellent question.
Mm.
Okay. So today I help people that like to start their own businesses, and I teach them and help them how to sell and how to make money through what they're selling. Because a lot of people don't necessarily know how to sell or where to go to get the resources to do that. And we want to make sure that they're successful and that they can pay their bills and keep their lights on and support their family.
So with this new career move and obviously what you were doing before, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to ultimately grow up and become?
You're gonna laugh. So my husband and I always make this joke, and I have no idea why, because I was never good at it. But in third grade, I was convinced I was going to do hair and own a beauty salon. And I'm
Okay.
really not sure why.
Right.
So my career actually in college, I interned in the entertainment industry. So I had a dream internship with MTV, with Viacom. I
Wow.
got to go to the VMAs, the MTV VMAs, and I got to meet Beyonce and T.I. and Justin Timberlake. These were, big celebrities back in, what was it, 2005, I think was my internship.
Yeah.
But I made a last minute decision to pivot and interviewed and got a job with a global medical device company called Medtronic, because that was more of a career than a job. So
Yeah.
what I wanted to do, even all the way up through college, elementary through college, continued to shift.
So do you ever look back and regret that you didn't stay in the entertainment industry, or was that just too heavy? Was it something that you got a taste of and you're like, I'm good?
So really the only, and I guess this is probably telling of why I'm in sales and continue to be in sales, I was so excited for my internship and I was so excited for the job offer with my internship, but I was so hung up on, like, how am I going to eat? I wasn't going to make any money.
Yeah.
And so then ironically, that job, that, the career brought me to LA, one of an entertainment hub. And to this day, I see friends that are doing some really, really quote cool things, and they are very cool things, and they're historical, and everybody is seeing it on the big screen, but the lifestyle is very different to me. The ebbs and flows of the finances, and you actually, now there's strikes, and so
Yeah.
I fortunately do not live with any regret not
Yeah.
pursuing entertainment.
So let's go back to the beginning of your life where you were born and raised. What were these seeds that were put into you to be somebody that helps startups and to even do these different career paths? What was all of that that was kind of a part of the growth that has become you today?
So I look back and I think about where some of my character traits came from, because I will say I'm very different from my mom and my dad, and not in a better or worse way, just a very different way.
Hmm.
They did divorce when I was very young, and my step parents have been in my life since I was 3, but I was always, amongst two families, and they both had two boys. So I have 4 half brothers, of which I kind of pop back and forth. And so I think just with that life and that childhood, it really drives a sense of independence, maybe at a little bit of survival, which is okay. I'm thankful for that. And then layer on top of that, I grew up figure skating, and actually went on to skate collegiately. So I'm an independent athlete, amongst people who are my friends, but equally my competitors
Right.
out on the ice. And then to layer again on top of that, I think the entrepreneurial spirit always stuck with me. I think about our parents saying, "Oh, I walked to school in the snow for 5 miles." But I had my first job when I was in 6th grade,
Wow.
by choice. My parents really didn't necessarily push it, but like I wanted to have money and be able to do things, and that independence of just what's mine is mine. And so I think it was all very much a good recipe for driving a couple of things. One is that entrepreneurial spirit, and I think that's why when I was climbing up that corporate ladder, it just always was missing. Like it wasn't quite exciting enough.
Yeah.
It was always with guardrails. And then equally just the independence and the competitiveness through athletics, more of the same with sales, and kind of being your own boss. And I love a good coach and I love a good leader, but I'm also thankful that I've been able to develop that in myself as well.
So as somebody that's obviously highly driven, who's been a hero for you, an inspiration for you?
That's a really good question. So I'm very, very close to my aunt. Um, and my aunt, I would say, is like a second mom, but who is equally as important to me is my Mimi. And my Mimi and my aunt are very similar, but then also different from my mom. But my Mimi was always so back, years and years and years ago, she graduated college. So she actually was originally from Kansas and moved to New York and Chicago, and ended up in New York and was a nurse. And as soon as she had children, which was very normal, you stopped working. It just was less common for women to work. But she went on and she was very philanthropically involved. And she had, I think, a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in herself. And she always was a very steady person for me and for a lot of other people. And so I think about when you say hero, we think of almost like somebody who's untouchable or not really impactful to us. But I feel like my aunt and my Mimi, they have been so positively impactful on my life. And that's how I would say is a more of a hero because they've helped me so much.
So you had mentioned meeting some big figures earlier on in your life, but today, if you could meet one person alive on the planet, spend some time with them, who'd you love to meet and talk to?
This is such a cliche answer, but it's so genuine. Oprah,
Yeah.
she is just like no other.
Hmm.
And she's so genuine, and she comes from literally nothing and had a challenging childhood, and she is somebody who did not get one handout and completely paved her own path.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't want to knock down anybody who has success. A lot, typically there's a lot of helping hands on the way. um I really feel like she is just one individual who just has done so much on her own and then built an empire to continue to elevate everybody around her.
So the one thing about Oprah is she's always dispensing good advice. What's the best advice you've
Mm.
ever gotten?
Ooh, let's see. So something that I think was very helpful, and this actually just came up. I've never been a student. I've never loved school, but there's something I learned about in college that was interesting. I think I took it away from a psychology class, and it was the idea of the permanent availability theory
Mhm.
around that this angst that we live with in society, that there's always something better, there's always something to strive for. And I think that it's so helpful for me to keep that in mind because I think being driven and independent and entrepreneurial, you can also find yourself in a very gray space of just never feeling like you're doing enough or that you could be doing more, building more, making more money. And that advice I try to circle back with that's never going to go away. So if I live in on that side of the street, there is there's permanently forever going to be whatever you create, but you also equally have to find the happiness and the joy and be proud of what's been created and what you're doing. And so I like that advice to kind of keep me grounded and bring me up at times.
So in this new business venture, what's been one of your best success stories? One that always puts a smile on your face?
So there's a client that I'm currently working with that came by way of a relationship that I've made after I launched my business. And this individual is, as most entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs are, a challenging personality. And they, by design, I get it. I know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And this individual had done a lot of things at a young age, but I don't think that they necessarily, and admittedly, did anything quite to success. Like they started something, they pivoted. They started something, they pivoted. Started something, and they pivoted. And I don't know if I would call it a last ditch effort, but I was brought in for like almost a final pivot that they weren't sure on. And so currently, we are actually just got off the phone expecting another POs into a space that we had never sold into when I started working with them in March. And there's one salesperson, there's the CEO and founder, and there's myself. And I'm so proud of the fact that they brought me in, listened, and were very actionable because this is truly going to be the difference for this company. I mean, they were not going to be getting any more investment dollars. And the fact that such a small team in such a short period of time can literally poise a startup to potentially have a successful exit in the next 24 to 48 months
Yeah.
is really wild to me. So I'm very, without mentioning names, I'm very proud. I'm proud of I should say most of of the clients and CEOs that I work with. But it's really cool to see the magic when it actually goes through.
Yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the senior and high school version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained so far. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would really encourage myself to not get lost in the weeds. So I think, I don't know if this is specific to myself. I don't think it is, but I think there's a lot of 20 somethings really chasing their tails as to, what am I going to do? Who am I? What should I be doing? Or am I doing enough? And I think it really taints the journey.
Mhm.
And I wish that I had known, like, it's okay to not have it figured out. It's okay to maybe in your early career live paycheck to paycheck. It's okay to not get the promotion. It's okay to interview. It's okay to accept something that you're not qualified for. And to be okay with the unknown,
Yeah.
and not feel like you have to have everything figured out. Just enjoy the journey, because I think that I gave myself a lot of anxiety and angst trying to get to the next thing. I mean, that's probably most driven people, but to just not be so hard on myself.
Yeah. So, as a figure skater and an athlete, if you could go back in time and see one sporting event with your own eyes, where are you going to go? What do you want to see?
Hmm. I would really, this is funny because I'm a figure skater, but I would have liked to have been present. I believe it was 1994 when everything was going on with Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, I was curious. You don't ever want to be cliche, but that
Yeah,
whole thing is fascinating.
it is wild. And then a movie has come out,
Yes.
and it's none of it is okay, but I think it's actually shocking maybe ish that I mean, people have leveraged their lives to be a athlete, especially an Olympic athlete. I think there's a documentary called The Price of Gold, I think
Yeah.
it's called. It's very sad. And I was young, and so I did not understand. But I think that there was something so much bigger there, for the athletes and the culture of not only figure skating but the Olympics. And I'm curious, like, what it would have felt like to be there, and what did it feel very divided. I mean, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that, Tanya Harding, like, how did you even end up there? It's like, how did things escalate? So I think that, as cliche it is historic, and it would have been interesting to see.
You know, I haven't thought about that scenario for a while, and I've seen documentaries and I lived through
Mhm.
that. And I think the only way that that didn't become disastrous for Nancy is that Tanya and all the people around her were such ding dongs. They could,
Totally.
they were such
Totally.
dimwits. They couldn't successfully order a cup of coffee with the right condiments in it. So the
A
fact that
hundred
they
percent.
tried to pull this off,
Right.
because if it would have been a professional outfit of someone that had some level of intellect, it could have been really bad. They would have really taken her knee out, and it would have been a bad
Right.
thing. So
Right.
it's probably good that she was kind of, a little dim, and it didn't go there.
Agreed.
So
And you think, I don't know if you watch Dateline or any of these documentaries, where, I'm totally sucked into, the crime culture, sadly, I guess.
yeah,
But I mean, some of these people is like, I don't think we've actually thought this through before we
right,
executed this. And then you watch the documentary, and it's like, I mean, Tanya Harding came from nothing. I believe
yeah,
she grew up in a trailer park. And I just think sometimes, I mean, the moral compass, when you have so much on the line, it's just crazy. Equally, both incredible athletes.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, from two different worlds, and
Yeah,
yeah,
super different.
yeah. The whole story is fascinating. So, of all of the things that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of?
I am the proudest of making the transition into leadership. So in sales, you can do very well and have a very long career. And I was very torn to step into leadership. I actually had a manager years ago say, "Oh, I'd like for you to interview for this district manager role." So I was going to be overseeing 3 people in Southern California. And I had no interest. Again, independent, control my own destiny, make my own money, all of those things. And it just completely shifted my career altogether. How the fact that, from a leadership perspective, It's like kind of like being a parent. I'm not sure if you have children, but
Oh yeah.
actually you said that you have a son. Um, and I'm the oldest I have 4 younger brothers. It just to what we were speaking about earlier with perspective, I can't imagine continuing to be in an independent contributor role. And the fact that I was able to make the shift into leadership and now get the opportunity to work with so many startups and really impact their trajectory
Yeah.
is I'm very thankful that somebody kind of forced my hand a bit, because I would not be sitting here.
Yeah. So Hilary, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think that their perception of me and my perception aren't super far off,
Okay.
which is a good thing. I think that 100% of the time, I always want people to know where we stand, hopefully for the good. I don't want there to be, any guessing. I think that's very important, not only in leadership, but just being a good friend and family member.
Sure.
Um, I love to laugh. I love to laugh and always find the humor in it. And something that I always kind of root in morally is I always want people to feel like we're on the same side. I never want anyone that I'm working with or my friends or family and us versus them. It's so important that like we always feel that we're on the same team. And I would believe that people would say the same thing.
So let's end this on a rousing note. If you could go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where are you going to go? What would you love to see happen?
Wow. I love this question, but like
Good.
15 are flooding into my brain
Well,
right now.
we could take a little like tram thing and hit a couple different places.
Okay, let me think about this. This isn't an event in time that I could necessarily attend, but I do think that it is fascinating, the concept of being like an outsider looking in to
Yeah.
your own life. Maybe because we were just watching the Christmas Carol,
Yeah.
but I do think that that perception, like looking back, it would have been so, I mean, obviously it can happen, to see what other people saw, um, would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great diversion off of that. I haven't heard that. That's great.
Yeah, because you're asking questions about, what shaped you and all the rest.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting. Part of the shaping that everybody goes through is just the living of it. But I so wonder like what the outside perspective of that
Yeah.
all looked like. Was it more graceful than I thought I thought it
Right.
was or not? I
Right.
mean, it just is, it's a wild thought, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. No, that's great. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, they want to learn more about you, reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. So you can visit my website at www.rebelscout.co. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Hilary Swan, Hilary with one L. You can also reach out via the business page on LinkedIn, which is Rebel Scout Consulting.
Excellent. What's that on the wallpaper back there?
So this is an aerial view of the beach.
Oh, cool.
So
Very
some
cool.
people think it's ice cream cones,
It
but it's,
does. That's what I was thinking. It did, but no.
yeah.
Now, like, there's more. I like it, and I just wanted to know what it is. So now it's kind of like that '90s thing where you'd have to pull your eyes back.
Oh yeah, what was that? Oh yeah, you put the
Magic Eye, I think they
not
called it.
magic eye.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. So I shared we moved to Denver last year from LA. Really missing the beach. Didn't know what to do with my office, and I said, you know what? I miss the beach. We're gonna make
yeah.
it. We're gonna make
That's
it a
awesome.
beach.
Yeah,
Thing.
because you're not getting that in Denver for sure. So
Not getting in Denver. Nope. We're getting snow and mountains here.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Hilary, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you. You too. Nice to meet you, Joe.
Nice to meet you. Take care.